Love is the water that wears down the rock. Love is the water that wears down the rock. Love is the power that won't be stopped. Love is the water that wears down the rock. Well, you say that your heart has been turned to stone. You say that you wanna be left alone. You say love has only made you weep and moan. Well, let me tell you something that you know in your bones. Love is the water that wears down the rock. Love is the water that wears down the rock. Love is a power that won't be stopped. Love is the water that wears down the rock. Well, you say that your soul is like a dry river bed. Stop waiting for the water long ago. You said you better pray all night for the rain instead. 'Cause love comes a tidal wave over your head. Come on, love is the water that wears down the rock. Love is the water that wears down the rock. Love is a power that won't be stopped. Love is the water that wears down the rock. You say that waiting for love takes too long. It dulls the sharp mind and weakens the strong. Well, you may be right, but you may be wrong. 'Cause love can make a mountain come tumbling down. Love is the water that wears down the rock. Love is the water that wears down the rock. Love is a power that won't be stopped. Love is the water that wears down the rock. The river washes over every woman and man. Feet in the gravel and mud in your hands. Nothing can stand against love's command. Every boulder turns into the grain of sand. Well, love is the water that wears down the rock. Love is the water that wears down the rock. Love is the power that won't be stopped. Love is the water that wears down the rock. I say love is the water that wears down the rock. Love is the water that wears down the rock. Love is the power that won't be stopped. Love is the water that wears down the rock.
Namaskar. Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Cedar Lane Unitarian Universalist Church, a community where love works. I'm the Reverend Abhi Janamanchi. I go by pronouns he, him, and I am privileged and honored to serve this religious community with my colleagues, Reverend Dana Edwards, Reverend Katie Romano Griffin. We gather this morning as we have gathered for over 70 years. I think I may have muted myself. All right. Now let's begin again. We gather today as we have gathered for over 70 years on the traditional lands of the Nacotchtank people from which the name Anacostia is derived. They're part of the Piscataway group of tribes. We honor with gratitude the land itself and the people who have protected it through the generations. We gather today in remembrance of those who were enslaved and worked this land without choice or reward. We gather in gratitude for all who have gone before us, whose love, labor, and sacrifice helped create and sustain the mission and ministry of this, our beloved religious community. And we gather today from different places and different times, different spaces and different devices, in person. Yes. And online, as we gather to explore the eternal, nurture community, build a more just world, and to rehearse and embody the beloved community within, among, and beyond. So whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on life's journey, whatever your beliefs, race, gender identity, disability, immigration, or documentation status, you are welcome here. Thank you for taking a chance and taking a risk, especially on this snowy morning, to join us for worship. If you're new or feel new, you're invited to complete the newcomer form that will be linked in the chat. And if you've been attending for a while and are interested in joining this religious community as a member, please reach out to Nicole Singer, our membership coordinator. Our pastoral visitors are an extension of our ministry team. Kathleen Homey and Lata Poturi are our pastoral visitors today, and they are available to support you in person and online. Thank you, Kathleen and Lata, for your ministry. And Dana, we have a few announcements.
We do.
Which is an important ritual, a Unitarian Universalist sacrament, actually.
I believe that is true.
Indeed, indeed, and I would not let go of that particular sacrament.
No.
Yes, much to the consternation of some of our members. So we have an important conversation that is going to be beginning in a couple of weeks on Thursday, February 24th at 6 p.m., which is the widening the circle of concern.
Oh, what does that mean, widening the circle of concern?
Well, the widening the circle of concern is actually a report that came out of the UUA's Commission on Institutional Change, and it came out in 2020, a very wide-ranging and deep reflection about looking at how we are as an institution and how we might be in growing into becoming the beloved community as a faith. And we're going to begin a series of conversations, and the first one, actually, our Board of Trustee member, Eduardo, and I will be co-facilitating on this exciting topic that Eduardo and I are very excited about. We don't know about the people who will be joining us, on theology.
Yes.
Right, Eduardo?
I'm excited.
Awesome. There you go. So we welcome you, and if you're interested, the Zoom link for these conversations is included in our e-news, but you can also reach out to us, to me or Eduardo, if you'd like to know more, as well as to participate in these conversations.
And, you know, we're back in person today. I'm so excited about that. I'm so excited to see people's faces and also to know that there's people online who are staying safe. And I'm so glad that everybody is here today. And I hope that everybody listens in the way that works best for their body.
That's right.
Because that's a way for us to really integrate what's going on, what's happening in the service. And, you know, for some people, sitting still with their legs crossed and their hands in their lap, that works for them. But for a lot of other people, that is not the way that they learn and listen best. So what do we have for them, for people who might learn or listen differently?
Well, we have all kinds of goodies in the back, right?
Oh, yes, yes, we do.
These are for all ages. So those of you who are here, if you find yourselves in a space where your hands and feet are getting a little restless and want to pick up something, we have, what do you call them?
Creative listening tools.
There you go.
So we have yarn, we have pipe cleaners, all different things for all different ages. So please do check it out.
Please. And also, if you're interested in learning more about Unitarian Universalism, what it is, it's theology, it's history, and a little bit about what guides us to be a religious community, Reverend Nancy McDonald Ladd and I will be co-leading 2 sessions this Sunday and next from 2 to 3:30 p.m., Beginning and Belonging, an Introduction to Unitarian Universalism. Again, the link for this is in our e-news, so if you are able to access our e-news, and welcome to join us this afternoon at 2 o'clock.
And so that's online, not in
That is
person?
on Zoom. Thank you.
Excellent.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome.
So, with those,
Oh, we have one more.
we do.
Yes, we have one more announcement. If you are in person, we have this great selfie, I don't know what they call it, like a selfie stage or a
Station.
Selfie station, yes, in the lounge. And Abhi and I already took our picture, and I'm going to post it on Facebook, and I would, or any social media. I'm also going to post it on Instagram. So if you would, after the service, like to show your love for Cedar Lane, there's a big red balloon that says "We love Cedar Lane," and we would love to see everybody's beautiful faces on social media over the course of the week. So think about doing that if you'd like.
If Dana and I, who are flaming introverts, can do it,
Yes.
I'm sure you can too, so please indulge us. Thank you, Taishima, for creating that
Yes.
beautiful station in the lobby area. We look forward to seeing you all there. So let us now take a moment and greet and welcome each other in person and also in the chat. Let us center ourselves for a time of reflection and worship with these words from Bell Hooks.
Love is as love does.
Love is an act of will, both an intention and an action.
Love is a combination of care, commitment, knowledge, responsibility, respect, and trust.
Love is most often defined as a noun.
We would all love better if we used it as a verb.
We do not have to love. We choose to love.
When we choose to love, we choose to move against fear, against alienation and separation.
The choice to love is the choice to connect, to find ourselves in the other.
When we work with love, we renew the spirit.
That renewal is an act of self-love. It nurtures our growth.
It's not what you do, but how you do it.
Action, like a sacrament, is the visible form of an invisible spirit, an outward manifestation of an inward power.
As Eduardo Hernandez and Linda Cabral kindle our chalice, please share in the chat where you are lighting your chalice from. May the chalice remind us that love is the spirit of our religious community, and service is its law. May its flame renew our commitment to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth and love, and to help one another. May it be so. Thank you.
It is a joyful moment in the life of our church when someone chooses to support a Unitarian Universalist church by becoming a member, by agreeing to share their gifts, time, talent, and treasure in support of the hope that together we can build a more just, more loving world while also holding and supporting each other through community. These new members we are celebrating have taken different paths to membership. Some have been UUs for a really long time. Others have participated in our Seekers series, met with the minister, and deepened their connection to community by joining a Soul Matters sharing circle, participating in children's religious education, or serving on a social justice ministry team. Still others have met us only online, connected with the minister, and attended online visitors on Zoom. Today, we celebrate these members and the many paths that have brought them here to membership as part of this community.
I am Nicole Singer, Membership Engagement Coordinator.
I'm Diane Yonchus, Chair of the membership team. It's with great joy that I share with you the names of our new Cedar Lane members. Amy Andre, Lisa Clemens Cope, Carrie Cope, Carolyn Grillo, Evelyn Lear, Richard Nugent, and Adrian O'Neill. Some of our new members find resonance in both UU and in their personal principles, including loving kindness. Some engage with spirituality through compassion to themselves and others, as well as being thoughtful and aware of others' feelings. Our new members find the holy in many different places, through love and friendship with family and friends, gratitude for canine companions, caring for others, gardening, nature, art, music, and prayer. Our new members are excited for weekly worship with like-minded people and to become part of our loving community.
As new members, do you affirm the following? And if so, please unmute in alphabetical order and say, I do. As new members, do you accept the responsibilities and freedoms associated with membership in a Unitarian Universalist congregation, to pledge to support this religious community with your time, gifts, and substance? Do you promise to attend congregational meetings, to participate actively in the work of the church, and to join the members of Cedar Lane Unitarian Universalist Church in a common quest for religious and spiritual understanding and for the common purpose of leading reverent and compassionate lives? If so, please say, I do.
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 The work of our congregation is to provide hospitality and care within our walls and beyond them, to work with the democratic process to build a more just world for each other and the world. When we enthusiastically welcome new members, it is also a time to renew the promises and commitment we've made as members of this congregation. I invite all those who will be seeing this in the congregation on February 13th to rise in body or spirit, whether you are online or in person, as you hear this congregational affirmation. And when I am finished, please respond with I do. We bid you welcome as you come with anticipation and joy. We hope that you will find here room to grow and flourish in mind, body, and spirit. We accept you into our community as companions in the spiritual journey. We pledge to rejoice with you in times of happiness, to grieve with you in times of sorrow, and to share with you all of the blessings of our free faith. Let the people say, I do. Welcome, new members.
Please hum along or sing along using your inside voice as the quartet, Cedar Lane Quartet, sings hymn 1008, When Our Heart is in a Holy Place.
When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed, kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell a story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our hearts stands within, and we feel the power of each other's faith. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
Homemade Love by Bell Hooks. My mama calls me girly pie. Her sweet, sweet. Daddy's honey bun chocolate dewdrop. Homemade love. All good, good. But everything I do cannot be right, because there's no all the time right. But all the time, any hurt can be healed, any wrongs forgiven, and all the world made peace again. Kiss, kiss. Let life go on. And all the girl pies sleep tenderly. Lost in deep dreams, nighttime surrender, closed door, sleep alone time. Memories of arms that hold me, holding me still. No need to fear the dark place, 'cause everywhere is home. The end.
Each week at Cedar Lane, we have an opportunity to practice generosity through giving. We build this community together. This community that holds us so closely and weaves us together day after day, year after year, and makes love work in our community and around the world. And today's offering is especially important and an important embodiment of all of that we do to come together. 2 years ago, around this time, there was a group of ninth graders that was planning their heritage trip to Boston, Massachusetts in the spring. They were diligently selling donuts during coffee hour and raising money for their trip. I wonder if there's anybody here or online, if you want to put it in the chat, if you bought a donut to support the youth. Is there anybody here who's ever done that? Yeah. And they're like this big, right? Like, I miss those donuts. So they worked hard every Sunday, and they were committed to coming to church as part of helping to raise the money to go on their heritage trip. They never got to go to Boston that year. And now they're in 11th grade. So we have an opportunity today, hopefully, fingers crossed, to help those 11th graders, as well as the 10th graders and 12th graders, take this important trip that's part of a rite of passage of what it means to be a Unitarian Universalist. It's one of the only things that we do to really help center our children and our youth in their Unitarian Universalist values in a very, very deep and meaningful way. So when they go to Boston, they go to the UUA headquarters. Sometimes they go to Walden Pond, where Thoreau stayed for a little while. They do all sorts of things to learn about our heritage as Unitarians and also Universalists, and how we came together as Unitarians, as Unitarian Universalists. And this isn't something that just happens here at Cedar Lane. This is also one of the things that happens throughout the country. So youth from all over the country go to Boston in their 8th or 9th grade year usually. And so this is a way to really deepen the identity of our children as Unitarian Universalists. And Bishop William Barber from the Poor People's Campaign reminds us that our budget is a moral document. So today, think about the 2 years worth of donuts that you might have purchased. And then live into your values by bringing the life-giving message of Unitarian Universalism to a new generation. Through your generosity and support, you can support their faith formation in a very, very meaningful way. Now, we just switched over to a new system for our database. Things will look mostly the same if you're giving online, but you might notice just a little bit of a difference of platform. No big deal. It should all go pretty smoothly, but just wanted to give you a heads up about that. And that's not the only way you can give at Cedar Lane. You can give by text, online giving, PayPal, QR code, by mailing a check to the church, or by sharing your gift in the offering bowl, the golden bowl, in the back of the sanctuary. Now, however you give or choose to give, we are grateful for your generosity and support, and we invite you to put a little love in your heart and put a little love in your offering today to support our youth. And the entire offering will go to the youth. Even if you put share the plate, it's the entire offering. So put a little love in your heart.
Think of your fellow man, give him a helping hand, put a little love in your heart.
You see it's getting late, oh please don't hesitate, put a little love in your heart, and the world will be a better place. You know the world will be a better place
For you,
and me.
you just wait and see.
Another day goes by and still the children cry. Put a little love in your heart. If you want the world to know we won't let hatred grow, put a little love in your heart, and the world will be a better place. You know the world will be a me. You just wait and see. Put a little love in your heart. Put a little love in your heart. Put a little love in your heart. A little love in your heart. A little love in your heart. Take a good look around, and if you're looking down, put a little love in your heart. I hope and you decide kindness will be your guide. Put a little love in your heart, and the world will be a better place. You know the world will be a better place for you and me. You just wait and see. Put a little love in your heart. Put a little love in your heart. Put a little love in your heart. A little love in your heart. A little love in your heart. Put a little love in. Put a little love in. Put a little love in your heart. In your heart.
Thank you, Cedar Lane Quartet. It is so good to see you all back here today. Thank you so much, and thank you, Jasmine, for the piano as well. Let us center ourselves and enter into this moment, breathing deeply. Calling upon all the sources of love that are within, among, and around us. We gather in this sanctuary of caring across time and space, a place set aside as a sanctuary amid the many challenges of life. A center from which we may gather strength to face these challenges with courage and hope, faith, and love. In this time of reflection, we lift up those in our community and beyond who are living through significant passages, the small and extraordinary milestones of life. Within our Cedar Lane community, we hold in our hearts Earlene Green, who is in hospice care, and her partner, Andy Strike. We mourn the sudden passing of Reverend Gene Pupke, senior minister of the First Unitarian Universalist Church of Richmond, Virginia, on Wednesday, February 9th. Reverend Pupke was deeply committed to our faith and a passionate advocate for social justice. Her ministry will live on, and all of us touched by her spirit and charged by her passion for our faith. We send our love and support to her wife, Regina, her family and friends, and members of the First Church of Richmond. We hold joy in our hearts for 39 years of marriage and celebration for the love of Susan Easterly and Sylvia Fisher. Congratulations. Our care extends beyond Cedar Lane to others whose lives are lost and whose lives have been impacted by the violence and calamities and the COVID-19 pandemic in our nation and in the world. We hold in our hearts the family and friends of Amir Locke, who was killed by the Minneapolis police while asleep in his house. We continue to mourn the passing of more than 900,000 people who have died in the COVID pandemic. Our hearts are filled with sorrow as we mark this grim milestone. Let us hold these friends of ours, our companions in this world, and all the joys and sorrows we hold in our hearts, in prayer and in silence.
Would you join me now in the spirit of meditation and prayer? Nameless one of many names and no name, sweet mystery that somehow holds us and helps us, that comforts us and challenges us, revolutionary love that calls us to turn away from fear, that will not let us go or let us down. Be with us in the joys and sorrows of our lives. Help us find the courage to live with the sorrow of loss and to reach out in sympathy and need. Expand our vision with hope so we may always remember the unending circle of life and death and love reborn that surrounds us with kindness and compassion. O Spirit of life and of love, the way of the world tells us sometimes not to hope, tells us to take what we can. The way of the world makes it easy to confuse our personal goals for the common good. But we are people of faith. We are faithful people trying to be people of faith. And we are wading in the water, and the waters are troubled. The waters are churching with distrust and divisiveness, hatred and violence, war and rumors of war. It would be easy to be carried away. But we have heard voices that spoke of your presence, voices that we have heard as your voice speaking your truth. Perhaps it is that we cannot bear to believe it is not your voice speaking still today. We have heard it said that you are love, and we have heard that the power of love is stronger than the love of power. We have heard that only love can cast out fear. And we have heard your voice in the call for beloved community, pointing to the power and the possibility in our beautiful pluralism. We listen, O Spirit, and amid the din of the world, we choose to believe. And so, we are leaning into you, hoping to help make the truth we have heard come true. Spirit of love, when we lean into you, lean towards us and help us lean toward one another. Help us to keep love alive as our ancestors did. Help us have faith in our power and faith in the power of love. May that be so. Shalom, salam, Om Shanti. Amen. Blessed be. As we enter this silence together, those who are mourning a loss or marking the anniversary of a loss are invited to rise in body and or in spirit, in person and online. Let us enter the silence together.
Often, loss and grief aren't held very well in our lives. We want to avoid it because it's really painful, so we try to cover it up by looking at
silver linings or thinking about how we've learned from this horrible situation. We try to focus on the positive and look for the helpers. We try to look at love. But Megan Devine, a leading psychotherapist and grief advocate, argues that grief is a part of love. Love for life, love for self, love for others. And that what you are living right now, painful as it is love. And love is really hard, excruciating at times. This excruciating pain that binds us together, this grief that in itself is an embodiment of love, can either pull us to despair or inspire us to lean into what this love means. Bell Hooks herself describes how it was love's absence that let her know how much love mattered. How this absence created a pain within her that was so intense she couldn't go on living, and it led her in this pain to theory, that she was desperate and wanting to comprehend what was happening in the world around her, and that this theory was a location for healing. It is not easy to name our pain and to make it a place for theorizing about grief and love and what a love ethic even means. But it is here that our love is most needed, most visible, most desperate, and most healing. In this state of constant trauma, in these wounds that make us feel so broken, so fractured, a loving community can help us remember our whole selves. In her work, Theory as a Liberatory Practice, Hooks describes an example of this loving community with a story. She describes how she was in a Black-owned restaurant down south and talking with a diverse group of Black people about issues of race, class, and gender. And she's leaving, and a woman comes up to thank her. Bell Hooks writes that she thanked me for creating a space to give voice to the feelings that she had always kept to herself. This woman stared at me directly, intently, eye to eye, and as we stood holding hands, saying again, "There has been so much hurt in me. There has been so much hurt in me." She gave thanks that our meeting, that our theorizing about race, gender, and sexuality that afternoon had eased her pain, testifying that she could feel that hurt go away, that she could feel the healing taking place within. Holding my hands, standing body to body, eye to eye, she allowed me to empathetically share the warmth of that healing. She wanted me to bear witness, to hear again both the naming of her pain and the power that emerged when she felt the hurt go away. This bearing witness to our pain and allowing it to be is one of the essential ways we can live into an ethic of love, to show up for each other authentically, regardless of what state we're in, and to authentically hold each other throughout all of the phases of our lives. We find ways to not only feel this painful love, but to voice out this pain. And perhaps most importantly, to hear and hold the pain of others in our community, to share the load of that suffering and to share the warmth of that healing so that we can all live into the reality of this beautiful, painful love. Love ethic and community, Hooks writes, transforms our lives by offering a different set of values to live by. Thinking of all of the small and large concessions and considerations that we make for the sake of our loved ones, everything from taking out the trash even when it's dark and cold and you're tired, to moving across the country to be closer to your family members. Love ethic and living an ethic of love means that we learn to value things like loyalty and commitment to sustained community and sustained bonds over other things, over material advancement. And you might be thinking, but like, what about me and my needs? When do I say no? Or that living ethically can sound not just, less fulfilling or boring, but maybe even oppressive or controlling. You feel tied down to all of these commitments and these people that you're considering. But Bell Hooks goes on to describe that the alternative, that behaving unethically outside of this ethic of love, with no thought of the consequences of our actions on other people, it's a bit like eating a ton of junk food. She says that it might taste good, but in the end, the body is never really adequately nourished. And so it remains in a constant state of lack and longing. Our souls feel this lack when we act unethically, behaving in ways that diminish our spirits and dehumanize others. That embracing a love ethic means that we utilize all of the dimensions of love: care, commitment, trust, responsibility, respect, and knowledge in our everyday lives. This can be really challenging. Our culture has ingrained in us a deep belief, through capitalistic dogma, to be honest, that there's just not enough to go around. There's not enough resources, there's not enough money, but there's also not enough kindness, not enough patience, not enough love. To change these ideas requires a level of awareness and a desire to change the systems, modes of thought, and dogma at all levels: the individual, the international, and the communal. These changes at every level are radical, and fear of radical change leads many people in our nation and in our world to betray their minds and hearts, and we feel this tension every day. But Bell Hooks also goes on to say that people like herself, that we tend to idealize and say are exceptional inspirations for all of the work that they do, are actually not exceptional, because they're not any smarter or kinder than their neighbors, but that they're just willing to live the truth of their values. So, as Unitarian Universalists, and people specifically at Cedar Lane, a community which proudly and boldly claims that we are where love works, what does living the truth of that value mean? What does it mean to you?
Wow. Wow. Thank you. Thank you, members of our choir, for that amazing rendition of How Can I Keep From Singing. Thank you. One of America's greatest social and cultural critics, activist, author, feminist, and spiritual teacher Bell Hooks died on December 16, 2021 at the age of 69. Bell Hooks was born in 1952 as Gloria Jean Watkins in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. She gave herself the name of Bell Hooks to honor her mother, grandmother, and her maternal great-grandmother, Belle Blair Hooks. And she spelled the words in lowercase to establish her own identity and to convey that what was important was the substance of her writing, not who she was. And her writings pushed feminism to include the unique experiences of Black and working-class women in a largely white middle-class worldview. At the same time, Hooks cautioned that a critique of white feminism did not mean a rejection of feminism, which she called a movement to end sexism, sexist exploitation, and oppression. Sexism, she wrote, was something women had so internalized that often they did not even realize its presence. But racism was something you felt on your skin, in your body, the heart. Hooks's work challenged me to think about pain I had experienced in my own life and how this pain was the byproduct of patriarchal thinking, conditioning, and living in my own life. Her work was not about centering men's experiences, but rather illustrating the damage that patriarchy also enacts on men. She made clear that men's pain, insecurities, fears, and inability to connect emotionally are all connected to men's allegiance to and conditioning in patriarchy. She challenged, when I encountered her writings first in seminary in my 20s, my own notions of accountability, pointing out that it is not the job of women, particularly Black and brown women, to educate and supervise men like myself, while also dealing with racism and sexism and misogyny in their own lives. In a speech some years ago, Hooks said that there was no more important historical moment to talk about men and patriarchy than the present, pointing to a state, this was during the Trump years, that was committed to reinstitutionalizing patriarchy at a deep level while paying lip service to its removal publicly. Her words, her prophetic words, have an uncanny resonance with so many of our realities today. Bell Hooks also challenged long-held pieties about the nature of power, social and economic hierarchies, and the role of activism and reform, not only within the women's movement, but movements led by the marginalized everywhere. She rejected the idea that different kinds of injustice existed in isolation from each other and argued that in order to address one injustice, it is necessary to tackle the others. The connection she drew between race, class, gender, sexual orientation, mental health, and gender identity presaged what another Black feminist, Kimberly Crenshaw, would later name as intersectionality. Now, while Hooks was multifaceted as a writer, poet, teacher, social critic, and activist, it is as a theorist and theologian of love that she may have had the most profound impact. She encountered love as more than just a romantic notion, as a transformative, healing power during her spiritual journey as a Christian Buddhist, And it was this power of love, she said, that could most effectively end oppression. In her groundbreaking book, All About Love, New Visions, Hooks offers her perspectives, both cultural and personal, secular and spiritual, on love, freeing it from its only narrow understanding as romantic love. She argues that love can be the new ethic with which to heal and bind individuals, communities, societies, and even nations. She writes, how different things might be if rather than saying, I think I am in love, we were saying, I've connected with someone in a way that makes me think I am on the way to knowing love. Or if instead of saying I am in love, we say I am loving or I will love. Our patterns around romantic love, she writes, are unlikely to change if we do not change our language. She then went on to share an anecdote to elaborate on her understanding of love. She writes, I remember trying to tell my young lover at the time, who seemed not to comprehend love. I wrote on a little postcard, you know, love is a combination of 6 ingredients: care, commitment, knowledge, responsibility, respect, and trust. And so, if you don't know what you're doing, just pull out this little card and ask yourself, in what way does my action that I am taking reflect these traits, these characteristics, these values, if you will? I believe that we should strive to approach the work of building the beloved community, the work of widening the circle, with a love ethic. Bell Hooks defines love as an act rather than a feeling, as a verb instead of a noun. Love, she writes, is to openly and honestly express care, knowledge, responsibility, respect, commitment, and trust. And the underlying principles of her love ethic are relationality and critical social consciousness. Now, I'm getting into some theological reflection here, and it may get a little dry, but bear with me, just journey with me for this morning. Because, you know, we talk about these things, we raise them up, we speak about them with passion, and usually it's us who do all that. But sometimes we need to dig a little deeper, to go underneath those, to really reflect on how they connect and why it is important to know those connections in order to be actually doing this work. So, bear with me. Now, relationality is a worldview that all of humanity is interconnected, interdependent, and which embraces compassion, collectivity, and humanizing treatment of others. And it rejects individualism and instrumental treatment of others. That's what relationality is. So relationality entails commitment and service to communal causes, compromise, and sharing resources, both material and immaterial, like privilege, power, networks, skill, time, energy. And critical social consciousness is a process of seeking awareness of social power structures, and how they affect our individual lives and our behaviors. So the purpose, when you apply these two to the purpose of building community, is for people to come together for the benefit of a collective. So it's not about the individual. It is not about centering the individual, me, me, me. It's not even about you, you. You. Yeah. It is the collective which is more than me and you and you and we. It is more than that. And as such, it is an act of love and an affirmation of our relationality. However, as Bell Hooks makes clear, in order to operate from a true love ethic, we must also critically examine our actions to see what is needed so that we can give care, be responsible, show respect, and indicate a willingness to learn. Not to be learned, but to be learning. And this includes, and this is the point I want to focus on this morning, this includes ways to get comfortable with the discomfort of conflict. Now, I know you're all people who are very comfortable with conflict. I'm not. I'm very conflict averse. Not even conflict avoidant. I'm conflict averse. But you're not. So I'm talking to myself here. Bell Hooks reminds us that we cannot build community without conflict. The issue, she writes, is not to be without conflict, but to be able to resolve conflict. And the commitment to community is what gives us the inspiration to come up with ways to resolve conflict. So how we relate to conflict is determined partly by whether we see the people on the other side as our enemies, or we see the institutions as the problem. And if we see everybody as having redemptive qualities and being capable of redemption, which is what universalism is all about. Universal love, universal salvation, it is about we are all redeemable. We are already redeemed. We are all lovable. We are loved already. Then conflict isn't as big a problem because it's not me against you. It's a question of how we are going to work it out together. Now, Dr. King used to talk about this when he was talking about the love that Jesus preached during his time. And he said he was preaching about love thy enemies. And he said, Jesus never said, like your neighbor. He said, love your neighbor, love thy enemies. Because you can love people even if you don't like them. I love my neighbor even though I don't like some of the things they do on their lawn. Get the picture? So community is about what we are willing to bring to it, and community is based in knowing. I cannot really be with you in genuine community if I'm not willing to know you. And to know you, I may have to know things that scare me or turn me off about you, and vice versa. So most people think that community means that we all think alike. Where like-minded people come together. That's all fine and good. Or we'll all be taking the same action. But when genuine community is inclusive, it says we are actually different. And part of what we are journeying toward is how to be together in our difference. It's hard not to hold religious communities in our society accountable for being antithetical to the whole idea of community. So the love ethic is not promoting some pseudo-sentimental idea of community. Neither is the beloved community, by the way, but community that is a practice. Community that comes only from engagement and struggle and from a willingness to be open and to be sustained in our commitment to change. So I believe that in order to be fully critical, we must acknowledge our interconnection with the rest of society as well, and for community building efforts to be true expressions of the love ethic, they must be connected to the larger scale movements for social change. That we can't build community in isolation or within our own little nucleus here at Cedar Lane. British community development practitioner and author Margaret Ledwith advocates that we embrace, and I quote, a critical approach situating local practice within the wider political picture. In other words, she writes, unless we have an analysis of power, of the structures of oppression in the world that reach into our local communities and impact our personal lives, our practice is likely to be tokenistic at best. So, at the same time, we must acknowledge the complexities of communities as overlapping social webs and networks and work strategically with others within the confines of our situations, through movements like the Poor People's Campaign, to use as an example. So I believe community building efforts must be oriented towards creating a more loving and just world on the macro level, but must be grounded in the creation of open dialogue, trusting relationships, communities, and genuine solidarity at the micro level. Employing the love ethic in everyday life then becomes an important part of linking our community and our community work to larger efforts for social change and social justice. And while joint actions for social justice can be concrete expressions of the love ethic, they must be grounded in relational and socially conscious lifestyle. And so the love ethic implies that we work to carry out the principles of love in every moment of our lives, that we must make a conscious effort to be oriented toward an ethic of love in our every interaction, and join together to act upon the opportunities available to us to contribute to the work, the ongoing work of justice, equity, and liberation. But we must start by first making a commitment, an intentional commitment to love and justice in our daily lives and in our micro-politics, as well as in public spaces. And it is only in this way that social change efforts will be grounded in and directed toward the creation of love and justice. Now, bell hooks teaches us another important lesson. Love is the essence of revolution. See, quite often in settings, academic or religious even, that tend to be somewhat dry intellectual settings, we experience the absence of warmth. And it is impossible not to witness the growing culture of cynicism and despair. But bell hooks, despite the violence she saw and experienced in the world, did not lose her spirited religiosity. The religiosity of love and hope that was grounded in her Christian and Buddhist, both her Christian tradition and her Buddhist practice. Because we live in a culture that normalizes violence, be it structural, psychic, spiritual, or cultural. And we live amid spectacular consumerism, with the violence of what Erich Fromm would have regarded as a having mode of existence. It is a hyper-competitive social Darwinism that, as the Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh would have said, negates the art of living here and now with mindfulness and calmness, and the toxic masculine culture of militarism, religious fundamentalism, and neo-patriotic nationalism. Now, it is easy to accept these patterns and adjust ourselves to this pathology. However, bell hooks reminds us of the redemptive power of love, compassion, sympathy, and forgiveness. So, friends, I've been going on for a bit, so I'm going to wrap this up. Wrap this up in particularly lifting up how in moments of despair and pain, I find myself turning to bell hooks and resonating with her. She wrote, no matter what has happened in our past, when we open our hearts to love, we can live as if born again, not forgetting the past, but seeing it in a new way, letting it live inside us in a new way. We go forward with the fresh insight that the past can no longer hurt us. I believe wholeheartedly that the only way out of domination is love. And the only way into really being able to connect with others and to know how to be is to be participating in every aspect of your life as a sacrament of love. Redeemed and restored, she says, love returns us to the promise of everlasting life. When we love, we can let our hearts speak. May we let our hearts speak. Amen and amen. I invite you now to rise in body and or in spirit and sing loudly and joyously with your inner voice. Love Will Guide Us, number 131.
Love will guide us, lead us and shine us, up inside us, lead the way. On the road from peace to liberty, love will guide us through the hard night. If you cannot sing like angels, if you cannot sing for thousands, you can live from dignity. You can change the world with your love. Love will guide us, peace and strong love. Love inside us, leading the way. On the road from peace to liberty, love will guide us through the hard night.
We leave with these words from the poet Alice Walker. While love is unfashionable, let us live unfashionably. Seeing the world a complex ball in small hands, let us be poor in all but truth and courage handed down by the old spirits. Let us be intimate with ancestral ghosts and music of the undead. While love is dangerous, let us walk bareheaded beside the great river. Let us gather blossoms under fire. Go in peace, friends. Go making peace. Living unfashionably. Loving fiercely. Bowing to the mystery and journeying bareheaded beside the great river. Gathering blossoms under fire. May it be so. May it be so. Amen.